Welcome back, everybody. In this video we're going to look at Skaven Packmaster's Skweel Gnawtooth. Here's what the model looks like all painted up, and I'm going to walk you through the steps I took to get there. So started off with Camry Brown and just gave everything a nice even base coat of that. I started actually with a light brown spray paint, but the Camry Brown covered up everything and gave me a nice flat base color. So what I'm doing here now is just Teleran flesh on the skin bits, so his tail, his hands, and his face, and there's the backside there, so just some of his arm there as well. Oh, and his feet, that's right. Keeping with the foundation colors, shard and granite on the big rat there, and it's going to get some washes and stuff. His cloak, I did that scab red. And there's the backside there. As you can see, I wasn't too careful around the edges because I know I'm going to be covering that up with the next base colors. Speaking of which, there's tarnished brass, so that's all the armor plating and bips and bobs like that. And for this part up here, I did that ruddy leather base coat there. And these are the colors that it's going to be highlighted with, so oiled leather and burnt orange to give me a leather sort of look. And scorched brown here on all the little rats everywhere, and down there as well. Okay, so next what I've done is Calthan brown on the whip areas here, as well as some of this fur. I actually ended up covering that up with a different color, but in the meantime that's Calthan brown. Okay, now everything got a nice coat of Devlin mud, so the shard and granite gets slightly shaded there with Devlin mud, and the metal bits there a little bit, and obviously these rats as well. There's the backside. You can see how that Devlin mud just pools and everything nicely. Okay, so working up the highlights here, working up the burnt orange right on the edges there. That's what you can see there. Doing a nice sharp edge highlight on that. Okay, now on the rat here, we've got walnut brown, black and brown. It's going to go up to intense brown. Those end up being pretty subtle highlights, but that's okay because I want this to be dark, and yeah, it'll be hard to tell. You'll see that bit more in the pictures with better contrast. Okay, on the fur bits here, I'm using this muddy brown, earth brown, leather brown mixture. Just to give me a bit of a different variation on the fur, and there's a bit on his arms there as well. And you can see that getting built up as those edge highlights there with that leather brown. And there on the back side, a little bit more of that. Okay, for the skin, that was based with Teleran flesh. It was given a Ogren flesh wash, and now I'm working on the Rosie Skin triad. And this is the Rosie Shadow, which is just slightly lighter than the Ogren Flesh washed Teleran flesh. Unfortunately, this picture is hard to tell, but I'm just working up the edges in there, working next layer up with Rosie Skin. And finally, again, it's hard to tell with this one, but just the brightest edges there with a little rosy highlight. And doing the same thing as well on this tail. Okay, did a little bit of highlighting on these rats here, and going to be doing some gold bits on there. For those whip, that kind of brown color, I used this Palomino Gold Triad, so it's nice bright contrast sort of color to everything else. Bright up, that buckskin pale is quite bright, and just gives nice contrast on those top edges there. And you can see just how much of a edge highlight there is on there. And that's the antique gold there on these bits here. I didn't bother doing the tarnished gold look. I just kept it simple. Now what I'm working on here is the warp stone bits. So starting that off with the orchide shade, and it's going to get snot green and scorpion green. So the snot green will go kind of widely around any of the sharp edges, and the scorpion green will just be just barely on the edges, and actually a little bit of white will go just where the edges, two edges will meet together. Again, sorry about this the picture. When you have lots of contrast in a model, it's hard to get the camera to auto focus on it. But this is bone shadow, aged bone and polished bone on his teeth, as well as his claws, his fingernails, more on that hand up there, and his toenails, as well as on there. For the red cloak, that's just a blood red highlight, so just building it up on the higher areas and smoothing it as much as possible into the scab red there. And I find that that blood red blends right down very, very thin quite nicely. Okay, so now we're done. I've got blood red on the eyes in there. As well, I put a very thin down layer of blood red on either side of that scar, just to give it sort of an infected look. And as well, I'd use the same warpstone colors a little bit on there, and that's just a little bit of scorpion green glazed over top. So it's a really thin layer brushed on to give it kind of a glowing look. And just working our way around. So yeah, I got the red eyes and both of them, and as well as some of the rats, but maybe hard to see that. And what I tried to do is tried to keep the brown colors distinct but complementary. So you see, that's why I use all the different triads, the browns, just so that you can tell they're different browns, but still look brown. A little bit closer up, and as I mentioned, this is a nice dark, rich brown, but there is all the layers of highlights on there. Right down to the Devlin Mud shadows. Pretty cool model. I'm going to have to paint up some giant rats to go with it. There's the finished warpstones, both sides of them there, and close up of his face. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Come back for more. Catch you next time.